So recently in Jujutsu Kaisen, we had a 1 month time skip in which all of our main cast have been training for their final fight against Kenjaku. Yuji is no exception to this, and looking at the exponential growth he has shown throughout the show during this 1 month time skip, it would be no surprise if he came out with some new busted ability. So in this video, I'm going to be discussing the insane theory that Yuji Itadori is able to switch bodies using a cursed technique of soul manipulation. Now I know you are probably thinking that this ability would come from Kenjaku and his ability to switch bodies. However, instead I want to look into the idea that this is Sukuna's innate curse technique. I'm going to start off with Yuji's fight against Mahito. So in their first fight, when Mahito attempted to touch Yuji's soul, he touched Sukuna's soul as well. Now there is no reason for Mahito to not be able to alter Sukuna's soul. However, he still was not able to do so. Therefore, I believe that this could be because Sukuna is able to manipulate his own soul, as well as reinforce it. This would mean that he has soul manipulation, which is actually stronger than Mahito's, meaning that Mahito's idle transfiguration has no effect on him. As well as this, we saw in the fight that Yuji was able to pinpoint Mahito's soul. This allowed Yuji to actually damage Mahito, and throughout the fight, Yuji managed to continue hitting Mahito's soul. This realistically wouldn't be luck, and instead it could be Sukuna's technique of soul manipulation seeping through into Yuji. We know that Sukuna's technique should one day become engraved into Yuji, so perhaps this was the initiation of the process, with Yuji starting to understand soul manipulation, as well as identifying the location of the individual soul. Now getting back onto Sukuna, if Sukuna was to have soul manipulation as his base curse technique, it would not make sense for Sukuna to have access to cleave and dismantle, as well as the fire arrow that we saw against Jogo. This is where the theory comes in that Sukuna can actually absorb others' souls or swap bodies with them, like Kenjaku. There is some speculation that Sukuna had a twin, and perhaps this twin was the holder of cleave and dismantle, and Sukuna then absorbed his twin, and over time was able to utilize that body's curse techniques. This may also increase his total cursed energy and significantly boost his base stats, as we saw that he was able to still outpace heavenly restriction users without even being at full power. This would make sense as to why Sukuna was so incredibly strong and got deemed the king of curses, because he was able to collect bodies and learn their techniques as well as increasing his own cursed energy. Now going back to soul manipulation, we saw him actually changing the composition of his own body when he tried to kill Angel by eating her. This would mean that, similar to Mahito, by changing the composition of his soul, he can actually change his body's appearance. We also know that Sukuna must have already had a good understanding of the soul, as he was able to imbue one of Yuji's fingers with all of his soul and cursed energy, then feed it to Megumi, and then take over Megumi's body. So now if we go back to what Gojo said about Sukuna's cursed techniques one day becoming Yuji's techniques, it allows the possibility for Yuji to potentially swap bodies with other people. Or instead of swapping bodies, Yuji could absorb the souls of people or cursed objects. That would mean he'd be able to increase his cursed energy, as well as learning new cursed techniques. We saw while Yuji was training, Yuji's body spoke to another body, as if this body was actually Yuji. And I saw somewhere that people are saying that Yuji is gaining experience in other people's bodies by fighting stronger opponents by switching their souls. So imagine if Yuji had all of these cursed techniques, as well as him being a powerhouse, he could be unstoppable. And this could be how Yuji actually defeats Sukuna. Now the question is, how would Yuji use this to save Megumi's soul? We know that Yuji has a plan to save Megumi, so this could be him incorporating his soul manipulation. So the way I see this going down is Yuji and Sukuna have a fight. So eventually I see Yuji actually winning this fight. I don't know how he would, however I have some ideas. So first off, it could just be Yuji learning stuff like reverse curse technique or cleave and dismantle. As we know that this is a weakened Sukuna, it would make sense that if Yuji was to gain some of these abilities, he would actually be able to overwhelm Sukuna. Now it could be like a tag team fight with Kashimo and Yuji. We know that Yuji works well alongside other sorcerers. So when Yuji actually comes up on top against Sukuna, Yuji could take Sukuna's soul out of Megumi's body, using soul manipulation. He could do this in a similar way to Sukuna. So Sukuna imbued one of Yuji's fingers with all of his soul and cursed energy, and then fed it to Megumi. So if Yuji was to do the same thing to Sukuna, by imbuing one of Megumi's fingers instead, and then feeding it to himself, then Sukuna could go back inside of Yuji. So with Yuji actually housing Sukuna, as Yuji has a better understanding of the soul, he would be able to suppress Sukuna a lot better. This means that Sukuna would never be able to take over Yuji, and instead, Yuji would literally be placing Sukuna inside of a cage inside of him. This theoretically would free Megumi like Yuji was freed from Sukuna. However, the problem is, I believe that Yuji and Sukuna are still in a binding vow. So there is a potential for a fight between them two, and if Yuji wins, then Sukuna actually ends the binding vow. However, this would be a full power Sukuna. So that could be another way to end the series. Sukuna versus Yuji. If Yuji wins, then Sukuna can't take over his body, and we just carry on. Now that is it for the theory. If you disagree with anything or want to add stuff to the theory, let me know down below, as well as any of your own theories. But don't forget to like and subscribe, as it helps out the channel a lot, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.